So, let's think about how we check division. And this is where the reverse operation for multiplication comes into play. To check division, multiply the divisor times the quotient and get the dividend. To check division, multiply divisor times quotient and get the dividend. And so we say A divided by B is equal to C if the divisor B times the quotient C equals the dividend A. Divisor B times the quotient C equals the dividend A. So using some numbers, 15 divided by 3 is equal to 5, since 3 times 5 is 15. You remember checking division this way, I feel sure. Divisor times quotient is supposed to equal the dividend. 3 times 5 is 15. Well, thinking about the sign combinations, negative 15 times negative 3 must equal 5, since negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Negative 3 times 5, negative times positive gives you a negative result. That means the divisor, negative 3, quotient, 5, should equal dividend, negative 15. Looking at another example of this, 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. 3 would be the divisor, negative 5 would be the quotient, and negative 15 would be the dividend. So, negative 15 divided by negative 3 equals negative 5. Three times negative 5 is negative 15. Negative 3 times negative 5 is positive 15. So negative times negative gives you positive. Divisor, negative 3. Quotient, negative 5. Dividend, 15. 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5. So this gives us the different combinations that can occur. We can have positive divided by positive to give us a positive answer. We can have negative divided by negative to give us a positive answer. Or we can have negative divided by positive to get a negative answer, or positive divided by negative to get a negative answer. The answer is positive when the dividend and divisor have the same sign. The answer is negative when the dividend and the divisor have different signs. And so we have a rule. I've written these as a pair of rules. The quotient of two numbers having the same sign is positive. The quotient of two numbers having the same sign is positive. The quotient of two numbers having different signs is negative. The quotient of two numbers having different signs is negative. Think about how these rules compare with the multiplication rules. The multiplication rules said exactly the same thing, except instead of the word quotient, we had the word product. So that means that if you have carefully learned the rule for multiplication, you know the rule for division as well, because they're exactly the same. Let's look at some examples. First, we have 48 divided by negative 6. 48 divided by negative 6. We have different signs. That means the answer must be negative, and so we get negative 8. Negative 10 divided by negative 5. The two numbers have the same sign. Therefore, the answer is positive, and we get as our answer positive 2. Negative 3/5 divided by negative 10. Remember that to divide fractions, we leave the first number unchanged, change divide to multiply, and take the reciprocal of the second number. And so we write -3/5 times the reciprocal of -1/10, which is -10/1. Let me mention something here. Notice that the negative on this 1/10 was located in the numerator. When I took its reciprocal, I left the negative in the numerator. This negative applies to the entire fraction. You now know that if you think of this as division, you have negative divided by positive, which is a negative result. That means this is a negative fraction. If I write negative divided by positive in the reciprocal case, it still is a negative fraction. It has kept its sign, which is the crucial thing. The minus sign can be left with the 1 if I choose to. I could put the -1 in the denominator and leave the 10 as positive. I could write the minus sign out in front of the whole fraction. But the most advantageous way to write this is to put the negative with the numerator. If you think about why that is, it makes sense, because if I write -1/10 with the negative in the numerator, I'm not likely to overlook it or forget it. If I write -1/10 with the negative out beside the fraction bar, I have a bit of a problem. It's very easy to let my eye run these two together so that it doesn't look as if there's a negative there at all. If I write the negative in the denominator, then I'm faced with using a negative denominator in cases where I'm going to add or subtract and must find a common denominator. I'd rather not do that. And so the most convenient thing is to keep the negative in the numerator of a fraction anytime the fraction itself is negative. Well, having done that, then let's do our multiplication and finish the problem. We're multiplying. In multiplication, we can reduce before we multiply, that is, we can cancel. And the canceling that can be done here is with the 5 and the 10. 5 goes into 5 one time, 5 into -10, -2 times. And that gives me -3 times -2, which is +6, over 1 times 1, which is 1, and 6/1 is 6.